Hi, good people. This is Deborah. I hope you're having a great day today. Let me read the disclaimer. All information provided on this channel is for educational purposes only. This channel strives to enlighten rather than promote or encourage the misuse of the information. I encourage you to always consider your intuition and discernment. The following content is presented for educational, historical, and social analysis purposes. It examines the social, political, economic, legal, and symbolic aspects of tipping. Tipping, particularly in the United States, which they call the United States. I'm going to say America. Through a critical and nuanced lens. Historical interpretations draw on a well-documented post-slavery labor practice, U.S. labor law history, and socio-cultural evolution. References to race, class, gender are framed to examine underlying structural systems. Legal references 18 U.S. Code 201C are cited to illustrate the ambiguity and the overlap between gratuities, honorariums, systematic control, especially where tipping practices intersect with economic and legal dependency. Symbolic and nuanced interpretations, including discussions of hidden power dynamic and ritual structure, are presented as metaphysical insight rather than imperial claim. This framework aimed to broaden the conversation around labor, dignity, and societal conditioning. Businesses mentioned or referenced solely in the content of industry-wide tipping practices and are not singled out as unique offenders. This material encourages informed awareness and open dialogue about labor justice, racial and gender equality, and the hidden framework that shape modern economic interactions. Take what resonates with you, and what does not resonate with you, put it on the shelf or throw it away. Now, this particular video title is Tipping, the Hidden System of Servitude from Nobility to Modern Economic Control. Now, I want you to look at that word nobility. Don't just think it's the Abion. It is also those that call themselves Moors. Oh yeah, they started this. It just amazes me how they start what they start and they hide behind the Abions, trying to make people think that the Abions are very instrumental in this plot that they put together to dominate and to put people in servitude. Y'all cease to amaze me. You are your ancestors' children. Wicked. Now, tipping in America was not about generosity. It was about keeping black labor subordinate, dependent, and economically unstable. Employers introduced tipping as a legal loophole to keep black laborers in poverty and dependency. Reconstruction, 1865-1877, and the solidified into social custom and law afterwards. After 1865, the Albion laborers were usually wage workers, debt peons, or tenant farmers, but not enslaved people. by legal and racial definition. The modern tipping system is being ritualized in legal systems under various names, but it's often disguised by terms like gratuity, honorarium, and or discretion. Gratuity, legal term. In law, gratuity can refer to voluntarily gift or benefit. However, in many jurisdiction contexts, it often walks a fine line with bribery. In U.S. federal law, it is legal for a public official to receive a gratuity for or because of an official act. 18 U.S. Code 20201C. Even if not a bribe. So tipping in this context becomes a subtle form of bribery. Now keep in mind that's gratuity. Now honorarium, now you know how I am with my southern talking, but it's okay. I'm gonna spell it out for you. It's HONORARUM. Yeah, you know what this is, you northerners. Now, the public term for a voluntary payment, usually to officials or speakers, used to avoid saying tip or bribe. In some circles, it serves as a legal workaround for unofficial payments. The facilitation fee, or service fee. In international business and courts abroad, this term is often used as a legally ambiguous way to describe the tip of bribe given to expedite services. Administrative discretion. While not a tip per se, this concept allows unequal enforcement or favoritism, often influenced by gifts, donation, relationships. Donations in some court-related systems. In specific municipal court systems, or a donation may reduce or dismiss minor infractions, a legalized form of mercy. The grease payment, GREASE payment. In anti-corruption discourse, this term is used to describe a small bribe or tip intended to expedite matters, often found in both businesses and bureaucratic systems globally. The practice of tipping carries a deep, often hidden history rooted in classism, slavery, economic manipulation, especially in America. While it is now seen as a gesture or gratitude, its origin and evolution reveals something more complex and exploitative. Here's the true roots, evolution, and hidden meaning. In occult, hidden systems of control, tipping within justice may be cloaked as a tribute and offering to gatekeepers. You know who the gatekeepers are. They are those that in high positions, the Moors, yes, as well as the ambions or albions. Symbolically, this enforces class hierarchies where access to justice is so not served. The origins of tipping. The European nobility. Now, the word European nobility is just not Albions. They are the Moors as well. Okay, and the feudal and class-based beginning. Tippet originated in medieval Europe, particularly in England, or shall I say Africa, where wealthy landowners gave small amount of money to ensure promptitude, and they call it tip, to servants and workers as a display of superiority and control, rather than a gesture of gratitude. The Moors were part of the nobility, particularly in medieval Spain, North Africa, and parts of southern Europe, and their influence was cultural, scientific, architectural, elite in many regions. They governed and settled. In secret societies like Freemasonry, Moorish symbols and names are still used, often without acknowledging their African origin. They ain't gonna let you know that. You ain't gonna see that. Because they still trying to hide that. Matter of fact, they out there saying that now they out there saying that they're the originals. No, you wasn't the originals. The originals don't act like you. All this mess that's going on in the planet is because of your mixing with everybody. It was a way to reinforce the class hierarchy. The upper class would give tips to remind the lower class of their place in society. Tipping, the Hidden Truth Compact Overview, European Class Roots. Okay, so the post-slavery America racialized control. After slavery ended in 1865, many black workers were hired into service roles but denied wages. They wasn't getting wages. Forced to live only on tips. Tipping replaced slavery with a legal system of economic control, especially in the hospitals, the railroad industry, the whatever they call them on the train. Tip minimized wages. In 1938, Fair Labor Standard Act, tipped workers were excluded from standard minimum wages protection. When the U.S. introduced minimum wage laws, tip workers were excluded. Why? The business lobby argued they were already getting paid by tips. In some U.S., and I say U.S. states because these states are ran by the U.S. corporation. Today, employees are still legally allowed to pay as low as $2.13 an hour. Yeah, they still being paid. And then here's the kicker. If the minimum wage is $7 and something, then those employers depend on the customer to pay their wage because the employer does not do that. Now, if that employee does not get the minimum up to the minimum wage, they have to show their tips to the employer in order to get the $7. If they get $2.13, let's just say for the 8 hours that they there, or however many hours they're there, then the employer, if they don't get tips, the employer has to add the amount in the 213 for them to get $7. That is just so wrong. Employers could legally shift the burden of paying wages onto customer, which they did, uh, abs- absolving themselves of a responsibility. Here are the states that still doing this: Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, Wyoming, and additionally, American Samoa, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Island, Puerto Rico. The modern exploitation, tipping shift wages responsible for the employee to the consumer, encourages emotional labor force cheerfully, and increases vulnerability to harassment, especially for the women of color. Hidden symbolism. Esoterically, tipping represents a ritual. It's a ritual now of dominance. The tipper, which is the master, giving giver of the worth, the worker, receiver, dependent. The mirror patriarchal and racial power structure masked as generosity. The call for change. Some businesses are abolishing tipping, opting for living wages and service inclusive pricing, restoring dignity and balance to labor. Now, America adoption, post-slavery control. After the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, the end of slavery in the U.S., tipping was imported from Europe by American elites. You know who the elites are? The elites are the Moors as well as the Albions, okay? Not all Albions, just those in high positions. But it took on a racial exploitation twist, because those that wasn't a part of their group, they had to play the Albions against the lower Albions against those that call themselves black. Newly freed black workers, especially in the South, were not paid regular wages. Instead, employers forced them to live off tips, especially in roles like railroad porters. That's what I was looking for, the railroad porters, the hotel staff, and restaurant servers. Tipping became a legal means of avoiding fair wages, and they still don't give you fair wages today. A shadow system of economic servitude. It recreated conditions of slavery under the new name. Example: poor man porters, many of them black men, were essential workers but heavily underpaid and relied on Albion travelers' tips. The psychological and the manipulation of tipping. Tipping plays on social pressure, emotional guilt, and unequal power dynamics. Customers are made to feel responsible for the survival of the workers. I lie to you not. That is the only reason why I tip the way I do. It depends on how much I got will determine how much I'm going to tip. It has nothing to do if they got a bad attitude or not. I'm still going to tip them because I know what the system is doing to them. Now, am I saying they deserve to be tipped? Of course they deserve to be tipped. That's why they frowning. That's why they mad. That's why they upset. They don't make enough money to pay their bills. But then they're not college. They didn't go to college so they could get more money. So they have to take on those kind of jobs. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. But this is the crap that the system The system has done everything it possibly can to keep people down. That's why, well, I'll say this later. Let me finish reading the notes that I put together. Workers are forced to perform happiness, smiling for the tips, even under duress or abuse, because they do that. They got to smile for you. They got to pretend to be nice to you, because they know if they're not like that, you ain't gonna tip them. I don't tip people based off whether they nice or nasty. I just tip them because I know what's going on with them. In this way, tipping becomes a form of emotional control, codependence, and the management of invisible labor. The symbolic meaning of tipping. From a hidden symbolic lens, tipping can be viewed as a ritual of power exchange. The giver is the tipper, assumes the role of the benefactor. And you know what the word benefactor means according to your Bible, or master. The receiver is cast into the role of dependent, because that's what they've done, regardless of how skilled or deserving they may be. It reinforces hierarchies, not equality. True abundance will honor labor with dignity and balance, not by making a worker beg for with a smile. That's wrong. Racial, gender, class injustice continues. Today, women, especially women of color, are the most affected by the tipped wages system. Tip workers are more vulnerable to harassment. I've seen it. I have literally seen it. Economically instability and a lack of access to health care. It's a system where the poorest subsidize the profit of wealthy corporation that pays low wages. Alternative reclaiming dignity. Some restaurants and business have moved toward no tipping models, choosing to pay living wages and include service in the bill. That's your gratuity. They charge you, you go to this expensive restaurant and then they make you pay an expensive tip. Yeah. And you don't mind tipping like me because you know it's helping the people, but I don't like it. The anger that I have is not against the workers, it's against the owners. This represents a step toward economic justice, but the resistance remains strong, particularly from those who fear the loss of social class power or control. The final truth. Tipping is distorted gratitude system. Genuine gratitude honors the laborers with respect, balance, and fair compensation, not manipulation. Tipping is, in its current form, is often a mass hiding systematic injustice, and its roots in slavery, classism, and patriarchal control make it a ritual of inequality dressed as kindness. The restaurants and hospitality. The chains are Denny, Olive Garden, Applebee's, IHOP, Hot, Red Lobster, TGI, Outback, Chili, Cheesecake Factory, and Buffalo Wild Wings. The gratuity practices is suggested by gratuity for large groups, overnight shifts, as well as service charges. Hotels and restaurants, hotels and resorts as well. The Marriott, the Hilton, Hyatt, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, MGM, the gratuity roles is the bellhops, the housekeepers, valet, consciences. Gratuity practice develops in rooms, automatically banquet, event fees, spa charges, service fees, cruise lines and resorts, Carnival Royal Caribbean. Of course, they would do it because they're part of that Moorish set. Norwegian Sanders gratuity daily as mandatory charges, sometimes bundled, sometimes optional. Delivery and ride apps, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Grubhub, Instacart, Postmates. Yeah, they require gratuity. Cafe, coffee shops, and casual chains, Starburst, Panera, Chipotle, Subway. Now, I was tripping out when I saw that on Subway when you have to pay, that it says tip. I couldn't believe they have incorporated that in there. Dunkin' Donut, Shake Shack, Sweet Green, Jumbo Juice, Crumble Cookies, Blue Bottle, Estain Bagels. Now, many use tipping screens and apps, even in cashiers only transaction. Retail, quick and service stores, 7-Eleven, Square, Clover terminals, POS and payment systems, engage in tipping. The Square, the Toast, the Clover, Lightspeed, Shopify, POS. All included digital gratuity and tip fields preset in checkout flow. Historic use. Pullman Company, infamous for underpaying black porters who were forced to rely entirely on tips. These are my thoughts. I don't mind leaving a tip while it feels appropriate. But I often find that discussion about tips can stir up a lot of frustration. It creates a dilemma for me. And I told you earlier, the dilemma is I get mad because the owners did that. I don't get mad with the workers because they just trying to do a job and they're told by their employees, encourage tips from the customers. Be kind to them. Smile when you don't feel like smiling. Put up with their shit if you don't feel like putting up with this shit. I personally have seen church people, and I'm going to say it, I have seen church people really give the waitresses and waiters a hard time. You've been to that demon ass church and then you come back and you go out to eat because that's your thing. You go out to eat and you are very, very rude and nasty to those waitress and waiters because I've seen it, and it's always the church going person. Don't go to church because it ain't changing you. I believe it is the company's responsibility to provide fair wages to its employees, not the customer's burden. But it has been made the customer burden. And it's a burden because we feel sorry for those workers, some of us. And then some of us, not me, but some go in and they automatically antagonizes those workers. They try to make them work for that little tip that they give them. After all, we are already spending our hard-earned money on food that they provide, drinks that they provide, and the service being offered. When it comes to tipping, there is a lack of understanding about individuals' budget and circumstances. People often forget that some of us do tip generously and should be appreciated for it rather than being judged or criticized. I consciously choose to avoid restaurants that implement mandatory gratuity because my concern is not directly at the servers themselves. They are simply doing their job, but rather at the owners who perpetuate this expectation. There's something fundamentally troubled about the mindset that assume tipping are owed, almost as if it's lingering slave spirit. This mentality extends beyond dining to various social systems, echoing historical contents that often marginalize specific communities. Tipping seems to be unfairly target individuals, drawing a parallel to welfare systems that were initially designed to support marginalized groups. Now, for those that you all that don't know, the welfare system was not created for you that call yourself blacks. It was created for the Albion. And today, the Albions are the majority of that welfare system. Do your own research. We need to get it together, people. I'm talking to you Albions as well as you that call yourself black. You need to wake up and smell the roses. Even in animated gaming, which I have experiences, I noticed characters embalming this ingrained exploitation of tipping. They want you to tip them, and if you don't tip them, they get mad and they don't speak to you. That is a slave mentality. They don't realize I have land that I have to pay for every month, and I like to go shopping on there. And so when I come to your place, I don't have to tip, but I do it anyway. But I don't have to. Now, sometimes I come to your place and I don't have money to tip because I just went shopping. But you still frown. You people, and I'm going to say you people need to realize you have a tier to pay, and those that come to listen to you do what you do, we have a tier to pay. And so we're not responsible for paying your tier. You are responsible for paying your tier. Now, it is a privilege that we tip you. It is a privilege that we do that. But we don't have to. That is a slave mentality. I just read it to you where it came from. Pay for your own stuff. In the way these companies that's doing what they're doing, they need to change. The system need to change. But those of you that are on the game are thinking that somebody got to pay your tier, we don't have to do that. And I know you're not going to like me very much for saying this, but it's okay. I ain't got no problem with that. Because you need to be appreciated. I was just at a party yesterday, and I tipped the DJ, and I tipped the person that had a res day. And she called herself a preacher. She actually went to school to be a preacher. And she didn't say thank you. I require a thank you. I like manners. If I give you something to do something for you, just say thank you. But she's a preacher in real life. Being a preacher in real life and you ain't got no manners, that tells me a lot about you. And but yet you go around trying to tell people what they should and should not do, but you don't do it yourself. Manners comes along with being changed. That comes along with it. I was born with manners, so I was already there. But those of you that don't have manners, if you believe in this deity and that deity, change need to take place in you. Because when change take place in you, you begin to get manners. You begin to become humble. You do. It's a part of the process. If you smoke weed, that goes away. If you smoke cigarette, that goes away. If you drink, that goes away. If you're having sex with this man, this man, that goes away. If you're having sex with all them women, that goes away. I'm telling you. You go through an alchemical change. But I just had to throw that in there because it just pisses me off. It irks me with these so-called religious people that think they save. But anyway, let's see. Okay, I noticed characters embalming their ingrained expectation of tipping, reacting with anger and frustration when someone refrains from tipping them. Talking about on the game, showing little regards for the spending's financial situation. To me, this is all branches back to a matter of integrity. While welfare programs may serve as a temporary safety net, jobs that pay poorly should also be viewed as an interim position, not ones where employees must rely on the whims of customers for fair compensation. Welfare system was set up as a temporary thing. It was not set up for you to be lazy. It was set up for a temporary emergency help. Once you got that temporary emergency help, you should have been out there trying to do better for yourself. Like I said, the welfare system was set up originally for the Avians. Their husbands was in the army fighting, and they set up the welfare system for them. You know, and now all the cultures are on that welfare system, but you're not supposed to be on that system all your life. You should try to do better for yourself. Let's see. To me, all branches are back to matter of integrity. While welfare programs may serve as a temporary safety net, jobs that pay poorly should also be viewed as interim position, not ones where employees must rely on the whims of customers for fair compensation. Composition. Companies should be taking responsibility for their employees' wages rather than placing them that obligation in the hands of the patrons of the customers. Now, I have attached some references to this, and it's quite a few of them, and I would attach it underneath the bottom of this video. Now, I didn't bring this to your attention for you to be pissed off. Don't be pissed off. Educate yourself about things and go through a change. You know, you always want people to be obligated to you but you're not obligated to no one. You are always on the receiving end, but you're not the type of person that's on the giving. If it ain't the preacher, you're not giving shit. You're on the receiving end. I suggest that you go through a whole look at yourself. But anyway, I wanted to bring that to your attention because I don't like it. I don't like what the system is doing to the customers, making the customer feel obligated to take care of responsibility that belong to them. And it started from slavery. And it started from the Moors. They did that shit. But like I said, they want you to think that Albion is one that created that stuff. And the Albion take credit for it. But they know they didn't do that. They know where it came from. And it's funny because, like I said, the Moors are out there talking about they were the original people. The only person that was using that word original was me. Now all of a sudden they using the word. Y'all amazes me. The original people were the women. They were and it was the brown women were the original people. But because they mix with everybody, there are people with O blood type in different cultures now. But when you become the original, you become the O blood type from that brown woman. You're not an O blood type from that man. You get the O blood type from that woman. So because there was so much mixture going on in the planet, there are Albions with O blood type as well. And A and B was not the original blood type. O is the dominant blood type because it was the beginning. You can take O and give it to A and B, but you can't give A and B to the O. It's infectious. Just wanted to let you know. But you need to educate yourselves. And stop doing the blame. Anyway, until the next time. Later.